How's it going, guys? Cody guys back again, dropping yet another video. Right, guys, this is a story in the Daily Record, which is a Scottish publication. Link in the description below, like I always do. It's about Polmont prison. The death rate at this prison is massive. Suicide, self-harm, just so much going on in this jail, and it's cost a lot of people their lives. It's been housing recently female offenders and male offenders and young offenders, because it was housing female offenders because another female prison was being there's only one female prison in Scotland, and it was being like revamped or whatever, so they moved the prisoners into this prison. Obviously the females are kept separate from the men, otherwise people running around the wing, look, I'm a father of 5 and stuff, do you know what I mean? But this is not a funny story, guys, at all. It's disgusting, actually, to be fair. Right, guys, so the headline reads, Polmont death cover-up exposed as nurses lied to hide the truth of jail tragedy. Pressure on troubled prison grows as Sunday Mail reveals another shocking case of neglect and cover-up. And this isn't just in Scotland, guys, this is in England and Wales as well. 2 nurses lied to an official inquiry over the death of a teenager at controversial Polmont prison in a bid to hide their shocking neglect. Craig Clifton, 19, God bless Craig Clifton, may you rest in peace, 19, was left for 2 days in his cell at the crisis hit young offenders institution, suffering from severe diabetic seizures. Inexplicably, in-house medical staff failed to call a doctor until the youngster had collapsed on the floor, and he passed away shortly after finally being rushed to Stirling Royal Infirmary. The Sunday Mail can reveal today shocking details of a fatal accident inquiry, report into the October 2005 incident. Right, so 2005, guys, so it's been 14 years, which has been suppressed for more than a decade, right? This is prisons for you guys. The legal determination obtained through the Freedom of Information laws documents a catalogue of horrifying shortcomings on the part of the nurses. It tells how they repeatedly failed to check the medical records or call a doctor for the barely conscious inmate, and then gave a fabricated and misleading information in the hope of avoiding blame. Mental health services at Polmont are already being reviewed by the Scottish Government after a Sunday Mail investigation revealed allegations of serious failings in the cases of a number of teenage inmates who have died in recent years. Details of Craig's case and question marks over why the FAI determination wasn't published earlier will heap yet more pressure on the authorities over Polmont, where there have been 11 deaths since 2005. Craig's mum, June Watt, God bless June Watt, my thoughts and prayers are still with her 14 years later, who were previously told how she was paid £15,000 hush money by the Scottish Prison Service, believes lives that could have been saved if the report on her son had been made widely available 11 years ago when it was compiled. In it, Sheriff Craig Caldwell made clear from the start none of Craig's life could have been saved on Craig's life, could have been saved on 2 consecutive days had the nurses whose names have been retracted done their jobs. He states this young man was in a collapsed state and incoherent, if not unconscious. Yet these nurses who spent 13 minutes in his cell said they had no concerns about him and took no steps to summon further medical assistance. Referring to one of the nurses, he adds, he was being called to the same prisoner within a... Referring to one of the nurses, he adds, he was being called to see the same prisoner within a matter of hours, yet did not take the trouble to consult the patient's medical records. In another withering section, the sheriff recounts the opinion of an expert witness who said, if Mr. Clifton, God bless him, had been admitted to hospital at any time on Tuesday, October the 25th, it would likely he would have survived. He later adds, but for these failures, a doctor would have been called out that afternoon at the latest, and Mr. Clifton would have been admitted to hospital with every chance of survival. The sheriff then goes on to savage the staff members for lying in his inquiry in a bid to cover their own backs. He notes one of the nurses. He says his contention that Mr. Clifton was fine at 7:40 a.m. and at 9:30 a.m. is simply a fabrication. Caldwell goes on to state in damning simple terms, the accounts given by the nurses bear no scrutiny whatsoever, and it is difficult to avoid the conclusion that, as in this account of events on Tuesday, name redacted, in other words, they won't name them, guys, which is disgusting, has set out to mislead the inquiry as its participation in this matter. I have concluded that the nurse's names again is redacted, so it's not there, and a lesser degree, name redacted again, have withheld the full and accurate facts of their involvement in this case, in this matter, to order to deflect criticism of their actions or lack of them, and to avoid the attachment to them to any degree of culpability for Mr. Clifton's death. Craig had been in Polmont since October of 2003 after being convicted of assault, and could have been released in the summer after he died. The summer after he died in 2005. Before his conviction, he'd been working as a gas mechanic at a local garage. Driving instructor Mum, June, 48, from Falkirk, attended the FAI, but has now seen the final determination. She said, "It is truly shocking, and I only found it out now, thanks to a newspaper, that this report exists, and that it is so critical of staff at Polmont. All these years I've been wondering what went wrong and why they seem to have been such a huge cover-up. At the time, they clearly just wanted shut of me with money and make the whole thing go away. I can't believe I am finding out now that it was neglect of these nurses that played a major part in Craig's death, and that is there in black and white for all to see. The obvious things I would like to know is whether these people are still working at the prison and whether they were even disciplined. In fact, they are not only failed in their duty, but also to be willing to lie to avoid any criticism is deplorable. The worst thing is that young people are still dying at the prison all the time and lessons are not being learned. Maybe the reason for these reports like these are kept from the public for as long as possible, rather than being out in the open, is so the public can learn and change the way things are done. Before 2016, the FAI determinations into deaths in custody were only published at the discretion of the sheriff. The Scottish Courts and Tribunal Services said, while the FAI report of Craig wasn't published at the time, a copy was sent to the procurator physical, and the only person who appeared or was represented at the inquiry. They said a copy would have also been obtained on request from a sheriff's clerk office for 3 months after the date of determination. June denies she was ever given a copy after FOI request, Freedom of Information request. We've only received a heavily redated version of the document, like a watered down one, guys, where names are taken out. The Scottish Government announced a review into mental health services at Polmont following a wide-range Sunday Mail investigation. We highlighted allegations of serious failings from the parents of Katie Allan, that's Linda Allan. Katie Allan, 21, died and she took her own life in June of 2018. Her case prompted us to probe several other teenagers who had died at the facility near Falkirk. Relatives of William Lindsay, also known as William Brown, 16, Robert Wagstaff, 18, Daniel Barclay, 19, Reagan Merchant, 17, and Ross McColm, 19, all claimed their children were tragically let down by the institution. Now, God bless William Lindsay, Robert Wagstaff, Daniel Barclay, Reagan Merchant, Ross McColm, and Katie Allan, and obviously the prisoner involved in the story as well. May they all rest in peace. A spokesperson for the Scottish Prison Service said, here we go, "This was a tragic incident that happened 14 years ago, and our sympathies are with those affected by the young man's death in 2005. The issues raised were addressed at the time of the fatal accident inquiry. The Scottish Prison Service works closely with partners to ensure that those in HMP and Young Offenders Institute Wyomot receive the highest level of care and support." Healthcare in Scottish prisons previously provided in-house was transferred to the NHS in 2011. Guys, like I say, answer me a question, right? This is an inquiry, this fatal accident investigation, right? So it's like, it's an inquest, right? Now, if these two nurses, right, why are these two nurses not being charged? If you go to court and you lie, right, you get done for perjury, right, lying, right, but these, because it was an inquest, it was a fatal accident inquiry, the law doesn't apply in that regard, right? They've lied through the back teeth, guys. They might still be working at this prison. They're running free after a young man died. Disgusting, guys, absolutely fucking disgusting. What do you think about this? Now, this is the thing, right? There's currently a death, and I'm not going to go into details, but there's currently there'll be a prison and probation ombudsman into a death at a prison in Wales on New Year's Day, and I know a lot because through a prisoner's girlfriend I speak to and another prisoner, a friend of a prisoner, sorry, that speaks to me. They don't know each other. They're from Manchester. The prisoner's girlfriend's from Liverpool. And the stories I've heard about this particular prison are shocking. Now, it sounds like medical negligence has contributed to the death of this prisoner, who died of a massive heart attack. And the prison are not forthcoming with the details. If you lose somebody in prison through a suicide or let's say a suicide, right? What the prison tell you and what the truth is are two very different versions of events. Don't take what the prison say at face value. Go to the solicitor, ask for CCTV, ask for the incident logs, because they don't lie. The prison have got a reputation to uphold and protect, right? To try to protect. Prisons are failing prisoners massively, and what's going on within prisons, and particularly Polmont, is disgusting. Obviously, this is Scotland prisons. Justice has been devolved to them, so they look after their own courts and stuff like that, and their own prisons. In England and Wales, we just look after the Ministry of Justice, look after the prisons in England and Wales. Shocking story, guys. Absolute disgusting cover-up. Lies. The prison have lied. The nurses have lied. They give her 15 grand, guys, trying to keep her quiet. I hope to God that the mother of the prisoner and all these prisoners, I hope they all take legal action against the prison and against the healthcare provider. Oh no, it was in-house, weren't it? So just seek answers, and it's not about financial gain, but compensation will come with that. Let's get some culpability. Let's make sure that people's heads roll. These people should be in prison. Anyone that's allowed the death of a prisoner should be in prison, and see what it's like on the other side of the door. And when prisoners find out what they're in for, these nurses, right, whether they're male or female, then hopefully they would be attacked. Fuming, guys. Absolutely disgusting story, right? And indicative of what's happening in prisons up and down the country. Prisoners' lives are disposable. And the system lies and it wipes its own arse, right? We've seen this, whether it's the prison officers, whether it's the nurses, whether it's the top brass of the prison, whether it's the Ministry of Justice. They are not forthcoming with stories. When there's a death in custody, these papers don't run to the media and tell them. No, because it's embarrassing, isn't it? It puts a spotlight on the prison, negative headlines. So they try to keep these stories getting out, guys. It's shocking that in Scotland, here in the UK, like the Prison and Probation Ombudsman and the inquest and stuff, they released the information and the lessons that should be learned. No lessons are ever learned. The prison say, oh yeah, after the death of X, Y and Z, we learnt lessons. No, they didn't. But in Scotland, right, it's all swept under the carpet. You can't even, they're not made public unless you try to ask for them. 3 months after the determination, it's taken years. Right, imagine being a mother of a prisoner, finding out 14 years later, right, through a newspaper story, right, that this has gone on and your loved one's been failed. She was at the FAI, right, but again, she got a watered down version of events. So she's found out that she can get access to this, and she should hopefully have access to this. My advice, sue. It's not about financial gain, it's about getting justice. On that note, guys, God bless all those involved in this story, the prisoner and then the other prisoners that have tragically lost their own life in that prison. My tea's bubbling away behind me, so I'm going to go because it's now 9:15 and I need to knock my tea up. Like, comment, subscribe. Cody out.